They thought I was losing my mind, forgetting names, leaving the stove on, misplacing bills. That's the story my daughter-in-law fed my son, the neighbors, even the doctors. But the truth is simpler and far more dangerous. I was never confused. I was watching. I was writing everything down, and I knew, one day, I would turn their game against them. My name is Seraphina Caldwell. I'm 63, widow, former probate attorney. I live alone in a small townhouse on Ashbourne Street, the kind of house nobody notices. Paint peeling on the front door, mailbox slightly bent, a little garden I never bothered to keep alive after my husband passed. Life is simple. Mornings I make tea, toast some bread, check the newspaper. I still like doing crossword puzzles. The TV hums in the background, more for company than interest. That's my routine. On Sundays, Marcus visits. For a while, it was just him. We'd eat chicken soup, maybe a slice of pie, and talk about his week. He works in finance, though he doesn't say much about details. After he married Fallon, everything changed. He still comes, but now she comes with him. Fallon is always put together, perfect hair, nails polished, clothes too sharp for our street. She calls me Mother in this syrupy voice. At first I thought she was just trying too hard. Then I noticed the little comments. Mother, you already asked about Marcus's project twice today. Mother, are you sure you locked the back door last night? You seemed a little tired. Marcus would look at her, then at me. He never challenged her. He just frowned, like maybe she had a point. One evening I was upstairs getting ready for bed. I heard them in the kitchen. They thought I was asleep. Fallon whispered, "She's slipping, Marcus." Yesterday she called me twice about the same appointment. Marcus mumbled, "She's always been forgetful." Fallon pushed, "Forgetful is dangerous. What if she leaves the stove on, burns the house down? Do you want to carry that guilt?" Then silence. I held my breath. Marcus sighed. "What are you saying?" Fallon's tone hardened. "Guardianship. It's the safest way. The house, her accounts, everything under control. We can finally get ahead of the debts." I froze at the top of the stairs. Guardianship, accounts, debts. They weren't worried about me. They were planning to take what I'd worked for all my life. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking of Marcus as a boy, small hands gripping mine when we crossed the street, crying when he scraped his knee. That same boy now sat in my kitchen, letting his wife plan my removal from my own life. The next morning, Fallon poured me coffee. "Morning, Mother." "Did you sleep well?" I forced a little laugh. "I did. Though I think I left the kettle on last night." Silly me. Her eyes lit up. She thought I was confirming her story. That afternoon, I walked 2 blocks to the stationery shop. I bought a plain lined notebook, the cheap kind with a red cover. That night, before bed, I wrote my first note. Fallon mentioned guardianship. Marcus silent. Motive, debts. From then on, I wrote everything down. Times, dates, exact words. The way Fallon reminded Marcus to take my keys. The look Marcus gave her when she whispered about bills. Little things, enough to build a pattern. I didn't fight her openly. Instead, I leaned into it. I asked her to carry groceries, even though I could manage. I pretended to struggle with the microwave clock. She believed she was collecting evidence of my decline. Really, I was collecting evidence of hers. At night, I'd lie in the dark, listening to the fridge hum. I thought about how quickly Marcus had fallen into her rhythm, how he didn't even question her motives. Maybe he didn't want to see. Maybe it was easier to believe I was weak than to face his own mistakes. But I knew one thing. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. I'd wait. I'd write. And when the time came, their own words would be the rope around their necks. This isn't the diary of a confused old woman. This is evidence, and it's only the beginning. The notebook stayed under my pillow. Every night before I turned off the lamp, I wrote something. At first it was small, just phrases Fallon used, looks Marcus gave her. But I knew I needed more than scraps. If they were going to build a case against me, I had to build one against them. A week later, they came over for Sunday dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. I cooked like I always did. The table was set, the wine opened. I watched them closely. Fallon poured herself a glass. "Mother, this looks wonderful." "You must have been on your feet all day. Isn't it too much for you?" I smiled. "It keeps me busy. Besides, I like cooking." She turned to Marcus. "See?" She pushes herself. "That's how accidents happen." Marcus frowned. He didn't say anything, just cut into his chicken. Halfway through the meal, I decided to test her. I stood up, walked toward the kitchen, then stopped suddenly and patted my pockets. "Oh, dear," I muttered loud enough for them to hear. "I can't remember where I put the oven mitts. Maybe I left them upstairs." Fallon's eyes lit up. She whispered something to Marcus, then followed me. "Mother, it's all right. You're just a little tired. Don't worry about small things." She pulled the mitts right off the counter where I'd left them on purpose. "Here they are. You see, you forgot." I gave her a soft laugh. "Oh, yes, silly me." She smiled like she'd won. That night I wrote it all down. Fallon pointed out I forgot oven mitts, though they were in plain sight. Used it as proof of forgetfulness. The next test came a few days later. I called Fallon on the phone in the afternoon. "Dear, do you remember what time Marcus finishes work on Thursdays?" "I think you told me, but I forgot." She was quick. "Mother, you already asked me that last week. Are you writing these things down?" I paused. Maybe I should. My memory isn't what it used to be. She sighed into the phone. "Exactly. You need someone to keep track of these things for you." I hung up and wrote, "She encourages idea of guardianship by exaggerating forgetfulness." Marcus likely unaware of this call. The more I gave her, the bolder she became. She started checking my cupboards. "Mother, these cans expired last month. Don't you keep track?" Or looking at my mail pile. "This bill is overdue? Were you planning to pay it?" One night, Marcus said quietly, "Mom, maybe Fallon's right. You do seem distracted." I looked at him. "Marcus, I've paid bills on time for 40 years. If one envelope slips through, it's not dementia. It's life." He didn't answer. He just rubbed the back of his neck like he used to when he was a boy caught in a lie. After they left, I checked the bills. One envelope had been pulled forward and left unopened. I was certain I'd paid it online already, which meant Fallon had gone through my mail. I started locking the desk drawer where I kept important papers. I bought a small audio recorder online. Cheap, fits in my pocket. If Fallon wanted to play games, I'd record the rules in her own voice. The first chance came the following Sunday. We sat in the living room after dinner. Fallon leaned closer to Marcus and said, just loud enough for me to hear, "If she forgets the stove again, it could be dangerous. The judge will understand." I held my teacup steady, but my hand pressed the recorder hidden in my sweater pocket. A soft click. Her voice captured. Later that night, I listened to the muffled recording alone in my bedroom. The words were faint but clear. My pulse steadied. I had proof. Small, but proof. I wrote in my notebook. First audio evidence, Fallon planning guardianship. Marcus silent. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just survival, this was a case. And I had just started building it. I began to notice things that didn't add up. Not mistakes, not forgetfulness. At least not mine. It was the kind of detail you catch when you've spent a lifetime reading documents, listening for what's missing instead of what's there. The first time was the stove. I hadn't cooked since lunch. I was sitting in the living room reading when Fallon announced, "Mother, the burner's on again." She said it with that tone, half sweet, half accusation. I walked in, and yes, the front burner glowed red. No pot, no smell of cooking. Fallon stood with one hand on her hip, Marcus right behind her. I said, "That's strange. I haven't been in the kitchen since noon." Fallon tilted her head, eyes wide, as if she was trying to be patient. "Maybe you forgot." I turned to Marcus. "Or maybe someone else brushed the knob by accident." Fallon shook her head. "Marcus, it's not safe." Marcus didn't defend me. He didn't accuse me either. He just looked tired. That silence cut deeper than words. That night I wrote in the notebook, "Burner incident. Too convenient. Possible staging." Fallon discovered it instantly. The second time was the faucet. It was a Sunday. We'd just finished dinner, roast beef, potatoes, carrots. Fallon excused herself from the table to use the bathroom. She was gone longer than usual. I didn't say anything. I just noted the squeak of the kitchen door. When we cleared the plates later, she suddenly cried out, "Mother, the sink is overflowing. Did you forget again?" The faucet was running full blast, water splashing against dishes. I kept my voice even. "I wasn't in here." She gave me that soft smile she uses when she wants Marcus to see her as the reasonable one. "Don't worry, it happens. We'll take care of you." What she didn't know was that I had placed a small recorder behind the fruit bowl before dinner. When I played it back that night, I heard the click of her heels, the squeak of the door, the sound of water rushing, while Marcus and I were still in the dining room. It was her, not me. Clear as day, I wrote in the notebook, "Audio evidence. Fallon turned faucet on herself. Staging forgetfulness." From then on, I carried the recorder in my apron pocket. The third time was more subtle. Fallon came into the kitchen while I was chopping vegetables. She gasped dramatically. "Mother, be careful, you nearly cut your hand." "You don't seem steady today." I looked down at my hand. Knife steady, slice clean. No slip, no shake. She wasn't warning me. She was planting a story. Later, while cleaning up, I noticed the trash had been replaced. Curious, I opened the bag. On top was a broken drinking glass, jagged edges glinting. I hadn't broken anything. That meant Fallon had. She'd set it up, waiting for a chance to find it later. That one chilled me. It was no longer about exaggerating forgetfulness. She was manufacturing evidence. A few days later, Marcus stopped by alone. He sat in the living room, hands clasped. "Mom, Fallon says you've been slipping. The stove, the faucet, she's worried." I stared at him. "Marcus, do you believe her?" He rubbed the back of his neck, the same nervous gesture he had as a boy. "I don't know what to believe." "That's the problem," I said quietly. "You don't want to know. You'd rather let her tell you what to see." He looked away. That conversation hurt, but it also lit a fire. I realized I couldn't rely on Marcus to defend me. I had to defend myself. So I started making small changes. I locked the drawer with my important papers. I double-checked the stove knobs every night, writing down the exact time I turned them off. I left sticky notes for myself on the fridge, not because I needed reminders, but because I wanted a paper trail to show I was keeping track. One afternoon, Fallon came by without Marcus. She stood in my kitchen, glancing at the notes on the fridge. "Oh, Mother, you're writing reminders now?" "That's smart. You know it's normal at your age to need a little extra help." I smiled. "Yes, I suppose it is." What she didn't see was the small recorder sitting under the dish towel, catching every word. That night I listened back. Her tone dripped with false sympathy, every word about my age and forgetfulness. It was exactly the kind of performance she'd put on in front of a judge. Now I had it preserved. The more she staged, the calmer I became. Every trap she laid for me became a trap for herself. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was documenting. I wrote in my notebook, Fallon confident. Believes Marcus on her side, increasingly bold, evidence growing. And as I closed the notebook that night, I thought, keep going, Fallon, give me more. Because one day, when the moment comes, I'll play it all back. And you won't be able to smile your way out of it. Fallon must have realized I wasn't breaking fast enough, because suddenly she wasn't just whispering to Marcus. She started bringing outsiders into it. The first sign was Mrs. Leary, my neighbor from 2 doors down. She stopped me while I was sweeping the porch one morning. Seraphina, dear, Fallon mentioned you've been a little forgetful lately. Are you all right? You know, if you ever need someone to check on you. Her voice was kind, but the words hit me like a cold wind. I forced a smile. I'm fine, thank you. I keep busy. She patted my arm. Of course, of course. Just remember we're here. I knew then Fallon was spreading her story beyond these walls. She wanted witnesses. She wanted a chorus ready to sing the same tune if this ever reached court. The second sign came a week later. Marcus showed up with Fallon and a man I hadn't met. He wore a gray jacket, carried a leather bag. Fallon introduced him like she was doing me a favor. This is Dr. Peterson, a specialist in geriatric health. He just wants to chat, Mother. I narrowed my eyes. I didn't schedule an appointment. Fallon smiled, sickly sweet. It's just a friendly consultation. We thought it might give us peace of mind. The doctor sat in my living room asking questions that felt rehearsed. What day of the week is it? Do you know who the president is? Have you had trouble keeping track of bills or appointments? I answered calmly, evenly. It's Thursday. The president is who he's always been, whether I like it or not. My bills are paid, on time. But I noticed Fallon behind him nodding slightly, mouthing words, coaching Marcus to watch my every hesitation. When I paused for a sip of water, she whispered, See? I played along. I let a small smile slip as if I were humoring a child. Then I excused myself to the kitchen, pretending I needed more tea. On the counter, tucked behind the sugar jar, my recorder blinked red. It had caught everything. The doctor's questions, my answers, Fallon's whispers. That night, I wrote in the notebook, Fallon brought Dr. Peterson without consent. Leading questions. Recorded her whispering, see? Shows manipulation. After that visit, I decided to take stronger steps. A notebook and recorder weren't enough anymore. Fallon was staging incidents, spreading stories, even dragging in professionals. I needed eyes that never blinked. I called a man named Harris, an old acquaintance from my law days, who now ran a small security company. We met at a coffee shop across town. I told him I wanted cameras, small, discreet, covering the kitchen, the hallway, the porch. He raised an eyebrow. Trouble at home? I sipped my coffee. Let's just say I don't like being misrepresented. He didn't ask more questions. By the next week, the cameras were in place. The first night after installation, I slept lighter but steadier. For the first time in weeks, I felt like the house itself was on my side. Fallon noticed the sticky notes on my fridge, my locked desk drawers, but she didn't notice the tiny black lens above the kitchen doorway. One evening, she found a pile of unpaid bills on the counter. She waved them in front of Marcus. Mother, these are 3 weeks late. I leaned back. That's strange. I paid them online yesterday. Marcus frowned. Then why are the envelopes unopened? Fallon put on her performance face, lips pursed, head tilted. Maybe she thought she did. Later, I checked the camera footage, clear as daylight. Fallon sliding the envelopes from her purse, placing them on the counter before dinner. I nearly laughed. She was building her case against me, while I was building mine against her. The hardest part was Marcus. He sat through all of this, never asking questions, never checking facts. That night, as I watched the footage again, I whispered to myself, "You'll see, Marcus. One day you'll see." For now, I kept my head down, played the part, let Fallon feel victorious, because every staged accident, every rumor, every consultation was being caught. Piece by piece, she was writing her own downfall, and I was just keeping the record. I knew something was coming the moment Fallon insisted on hosting Sunday dinner at my house. She arrived earlier than usual, carrying more than groceries. Marcus was with her, quiet as ever, but behind them came two neighbors, Mrs. Leary and Mr. Collins, and a woman I barely knew from church. Fallon kissed my cheek. "Mother, we thought it would be nice to have a bigger gathering." "More company for you." I raised an eyebrow. I hadn't invited anyone, but I said nothing. I set the table, poured tea, and waited. We ate roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. The food disappeared quickly, but conversation felt staged. Fallon asked pointed questions. "Mother, do you remember what day it is?" "Mother, when was the last time you saw Dr. Peterson?" Every answer I gave, she nodded, as if checking boxes. After dessert, she cleared her throat. "Mother, we've all been worried. This isn't easy, but it's necessary. Everyone here cares about you." Mrs. Leary leaned forward. "Seraphina, dear, I've noticed you seem a bit more tired lately. Forgetting things here and there, it happens to all of us." Mr. Collins chimed in. "Yes, and safety is important. You don't want to be alone if something goes wrong." The churchwoman smiled gently. "We just want what's best for you." I looked around the table. Their faces weren't cruel. They were convinced. Fallon had done her work well. She'd fed them the story until they believed it was theirs. Marcus finally spoke. His voice was low. "Mom, maybe we should consider some help." "Fallon's right. We can't risk something happening to you." I set my teacup down. Help or control? The room went silent. Fallon put a hand on Marcus's arm, playing the role of patient wife. "Mother, this isn't about control. It's about care. Guardianship would give Marcus the ability to handle things for you. Bills, appointments, decisions. You wouldn't have to worry anymore." I met her eyes. "You mean I wouldn't have a say anymore?" She gave a soft laugh. "No, of course you'd still have a voice. This would just protect you." Mrs. Leary nodded. "It sounds reasonable, Seraphina." "We all want you safe." I leaned back in my chair, folded my hands. Inside, my heart pounded, but my face stayed calm. "I appreciate your concern. Truly. But I'm not signing anything tonight." Fallon pressed. "Mother, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Think of Marcus. Think of the burden." I turned to my son. "Marcus, is this your idea or hers?" He swallowed, eyes on the table. "It's both of ours." That was the moment I understood just how far she had pulled him in. I stood up slowly. "I think we're done for tonight. Thank you all for coming." My voice was steady, almost too polite. Fallon looked frustrated, but she masked it quickly with a smile. "Of course, Mother. We'll talk again soon." When they left, I went straight to my bedroom. I opened the drawer, pulled out the small flash drive where I'd saved the camera footage, the faucet, the stove, the bills Fallon planted. I held it in my hand like a weapon. Then I wrote in the notebook, "Fallon organized intervention. Neighbors and Marcus pressured me to agree to guardianship. Did not sign. Cameras captured entire evening. Evidence. Her pushing for legal control." That night, I sat in the dark living room. the hum of the fridge in the background. For the first time, I felt less angry and more certain. Fallon thought she was tightening the noose, but all she'd done was gather more witnesses for my case. She didn't realize it yet, but every person she dragged into her story would eventually hear the other side, the truth. And when that happened, her web would collapse. It was a Tuesday morning when the letter came, a thick envelope stamped with the county court seal. I carried it inside, sat at the kitchen table, and slit it open with the same butter knife I've used for years. Inside were papers, formal, cold, full of legal language I knew too well. Petition for guardianship of Seraphina Caldwell, filed by Fallon Caldwell. Supported by Marcus Caldwell. My hands didn't shake. My eyes scanned at each line the way I used to scan contracts for hidden traps. It was all there. Claims of memory loss. Claims of unpaid bills. Claims of unsafe living conditions. Attached were witness statements from neighbors and a note from Dr. Peterson. They were building their case. And now, it was official. That evening, Marcus came by with Fallon. She didn't waste time. She sat on my sofa, crossed her legs, and said, "Mother, I know the papers must be a shock, but it's really for the best. We don't want things to get worse." I looked straight at her. "You mean you don't want me in your way?" Her smile didn't falter. "We want you safe. Guardianship will take the pressure off you." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, this isn't... It's not meant to hurt you. It's just practical." "Practical?" I repeated. "That's what you call stealing someone's life?" The silence stretched. Fallon finally stood. "The court date is set for 6 weeks from now. It would be easier if you agreed. If you fight this, it will get messy." I leaned forward. "Then messy it will be." After they left, I pulled the flash drive from my drawer, laid out the notebook, and stared at the pile of evidence I'd been collecting. But evidence means nothing without someone to present it properly. I knew I couldn't do this alone. The next morning, I called an old colleague, David Harrington. We'd worked cases together years ago. He'd gone into private practice after retiring from the firm. When he answered, his voice was gruff but warm. "Seraphina, it's been years. What can I do for you?" I took a deep breath. "I need representation. Guardianship case. My daughter-in-law filed against me." He whistled low. "That's heavy. Do you have proof she's lying?" I almost laughed. "I've got more than proof. I've got recordings, footage, witnesses she doesn't realize I control." He paused. "All right. Bring everything to my office. We'll build this piece by piece." That afternoon, I packed a folder. Copies of the notebook pages, audio files transferred from the recorder, still shots from the cameras showing Fallon planting the bills and turning the faucet. I carried it in a plain tote bag, nothing fancy. At David's office, we spread everything across his desk. He examined each page, each clip. His eyes narrowed as he listened to Fallon's voice whispering, "See? On the recording. This is gold," he said finally. "She thinks she's clever, but she's sloppy. Courts don't like sloppy." He tapped his pen against the table. "We'll need character witnesses. People who've seen you functioning just fine." I nodded. "I've got Charlotte, my old assistant. She visits twice a week. She knows I handle my bills myself, and my doctor, my real doctor, he can testify. I'm healthy." David leaned back. "Then we're not just defending you. We're turning this on her. False statements, staged incidents. If we play this right, she'll be the one under fire." Walking home that evening, I felt lighter than I had in months. Not safe. Never safe, but steadier. For the first time, I had someone on my side who saw the bigger picture. That Sunday, when Marcus and Fallon came again, I kept my tone calm. Fallon brought up the hearing. "Mother, it's coming soon. If you want, we can help you prepare." I smiled faintly. "Don't worry about me. I've been preparing for a long time." Her eyes flickered just for a second. She didn't understand yet, but she felt it. The shift. That night, I wrote in the notebook, "Petition filed, evidence ready, lawyer secured. Lawyer, Fallon confident, but cracks beginning." I closed the book, turned off the lamp, and whispered to myself, 6 weeks. That's all I need. The weeks leading up to the hearing were heavier than I expected. Not because I doubted myself, but because Fallon wasn't slowing down. She was doubling her efforts. It started with the neighbors. Mrs. Leary knocked one afternoon, holding a casserole dish. She looked at me with the same pity people reserve for the very sick. "Seraphina, I just wanted to make sure you're eating properly. Fallon told me you sometimes forget meals." I forced a smile. That's kind of you, but I cook for myself every day." She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. Fallon's voice was in her head now. Then the church group. A woman I barely knew approached me after service. "We've been praying for you, dear. I heard you're having some difficulties at home." I stared at her. "Difficulties?" She patted my arm. "It's nothing to be ashamed of. We all get old." By the end of that week, I realized Fallon wasn't just preparing for court. She was staging a whole community to testify without knowing they were testifying. Marcus grew colder too. He came by less often, and when he did, he barely spoke. One evening, he stood in my kitchen staring at the fridge. "Mom, Fallon says you've been struggling more than you admit. Are you sure you can keep living here alone?" I turned to him. "Marcus, you've known me your whole life. Do I look like a woman who can't manage her own house?" He looked away. "I just don't want something to happen to you. And I don't want you to regret trusting the wrong person," I said quietly. He didn't answer. He just left earlier than usual. After that conversation, I stopped waiting for Marcus to come around. I accepted that he might not see the truth until it was laid bare in front of a judge. So I focused on preparation. Every morning I reviewed the folder with David. We organized the evidence. Audio recordings of Fallon whispering during Dr. Peterson's visit. Camera footage of her planting bills and leaving the faucet running. Witness statements from Charlotte, my former assistant, confirming I handled my affairs. A letter from my real doctor testifying I had no cognitive decline. We practiced my answers to possible questions. David warned me, "They'll try to rattle you. Don't argue. Just answer simply, directly. The calmer you are, the weaker their story looks." I also arranged for Charlotte to testify. She was eager. "They don't know who they're messing with," she told me over coffee. "You've kept that office running tighter than anyone. If you can manage a dozen probate files at once, you can manage your own bills." The night before the hearing, I walked through the house slowly. I checked the locks, the stove, the notes on the fridge. Not because I doubted myself, because I wanted to be certain, to feel the control in my own hands. Fallon called that evening. Her voice was smooth, almost cheerful. "Mother, I hope you're not too nervous about tomorrow. Marcus and I will be right there. It'll all go easier if you don't fight." I let a pause hang in the air. Then I said, "You've underestimated me, Fallon. Tomorrow you'll see." She laughed lightly. "We'll see indeed." I hung up and sat in the living room, notebook in my lap. I flipped through the pages, months of notes, every lie, every manipulation carefully written. I realized it wasn't just evidence. It was a diary of survival. Proof that I hadn't been losing myself, but fighting to keep hold of it. I wrote one final line before closing the book. "Tomorrow, The truth begins. Then I turned off the light and lay in bed. The house hummed around me, the fridge, the pipes, the clock. For once, the sounds didn't feel heavy. They felt steady, like a drum beat. I wasn't afraid of court. I wasn't afraid of Fallon. The only thing I feared was Marcus's face when he realized who his wife really was. The courthouse smelled of old wood and floor polish. I'd been there many times in my career, but never like this. Never as the one whose name sat on the petition. Incapacity. Guardianship. Words meant to erase me. Fallon walked in first, Marcus at her side. She wore a navy suit, hair perfect, expression calm. She looked like she owned the room. Marcus looked pale, but he didn't let go of her hand. David leaned toward me. Stay steady. Let them hang themselves. The judge entered, papers in hand. We're here on the petition for guardianship of Seraphina Caldwell. Fallon went first. She spoke sweetly like butter wouldn't melt. Your Honor, we only want what's best for Mother. She forgets appointments. She's left the stove on. We've all seen it. Even neighbors are concerned. Guardianship will protect her. She gestured toward Mrs. Leary, who nodded sympathetically from the benches. Then Dr. Peterson testified. Based on my brief assessment, there are signs of mild cognitive decline. I sat quietly, hands folded, letting them build their wall of lies. Finally, it was my turn. David rose. Your Honor, with respect, my client is not the one being careless with the truth. We have evidence. He clicked a remote. On the screen, grainy footage appeared. Fallon in my kitchen, turning the faucet full blast, then calling me in minutes later. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Fallon stiffened. Next clip, Fallon sliding the envelopes from her purse, placing them neatly on my counter. Then, later that evening, holding them up to Marcus. Unpaid bills, she'd said. The judge's eyebrows rose. Fallon shifted in her seat. Then the audio recording played. Dr. Peterson's voice. What day is it? My answer clear. Then Fallon's whisper in the background. See? The room fell silent. David spoke calmly. This is not evidence of incapacity. This is evidence of manipulation. Fallon tried to recover. That's taken out of context. She must have edited those. The judge cut her off. Enough. The court doesn't appreciate staged evidence or misleading testimony. Marcus looked at me, eyes wide, then back at Fallon. Is this true? Did you do this? Fallon hissed under her breath. Marcus, don't! But he stood, his voice shaking. You lied to me. You made me believe my own mother was losing her mind. Fallon's face crumbled. For the first time, the mask slipped. The judge cleared his throat. Petition for guardianship is denied. Furthermore, this court will review the matter of false statements made under oath. He turned to Fallon. You may want to find counsel of your own. It was over. Just like that. I exhaled slowly. The air in the room felt lighter, as if a weight had finally lifted. Fallon sat frozen, lips pressed tight, while Marcus buried his face in his hands. As we walked out, David whispered, That went better than I hoped. I nodded. She built her case on lies. Lies don't hold in daylight. Outside the courthouse, Marcus caught up to me. His voice was low, broken. Mom, I don't know what to say. I looked at him for a long moment. Then don't say anything. Just see the truth for what it is. He nodded, tears in his eyes. For the first time in months, I believed he finally did. That night, back at home, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea. The fridge hummed, the clock ticked. The house felt safe again. I opened the notebook one last time and wrote, Case closed, freedom intact, Fallon exposed. Then I closed it for good. This wasn't just about winning in court, it was about proving, to them, to the neighbors, to myself, that I was never the confused old woman they painted me to be. I was still me, stronger than they imagined. And as for Fallon, her own ambition had dug the hole. All I did was hand her the shovel.